Hi, Tea Society! Welcome back to the Antisocial Planet. And today we are getting into another solo leveling episode. And I'm pretty excited for this one because we're getting into officially the Jinwoo 2.0 of the series and getting into the real mechanics of it. I don't know how much we're going to deconstruct of the mechanics in this. Like, are we going to be foreshadowing some other stuff? Are we going to be dealing with some of the politics around Second Awakenings? I don't know, but I'm excited to get into this. I feel like this is going to be the moment of really hooking people into what the series is going to be and how they're going to incorporate a bunch of the video game elements. So let's just get into the episode. In 3, 2, 1, go. Oh yeah, we got to deal with some intense aftermath. The sound design was great on this part. Ugh, that's horrifying. Mm-hmm. This was like so disorienting when I read it. I was like, what's happening? Mm-hmm. Gosh, the amount of trauma. Like, I feel traumatized and it wasn't even something done to me. Yep. You've stumbled into some politics, my friends. Accidentally and completely against your will. Yeah, like, are we gonna get into are we just gonna deal with the, like, penalty stuff? I feel like we're not gonna get into the, like, subway scenes yet. It's so weird to hear TXT outside of the context of, like, just listening to their music. The animation is really cool, this opener, though. I love the fact that they've incorporated the, like, use of color and light that is such a huge thing of the styling of the manhwa. Like, it's one of my favorite things. I'm always talking about how much I love the artwork whenever I make videos about it because I'm just like, it's so good. And the use of color and light is fantastic in the artwork. Mm, Juhi's going through it. Yeah. Yeah. I was like, she's mentally she's struggling a lot. Them being in really dark lighting compared to Zimo is really interesting too. Like, he's in full daylight. You survived. Hmm. In the manhwa, did they find him on the altar? I can't remember now off the top of my head. Gonna go through a whole explanation. Boy has he just hasn't quite figured it out yet. Oh, a little hopeful look. I mean, it's better than you think. You just haven't gotten there yet. He looks so hopeful though. It's just like it breaks my heart. Oh, the poor sweetie pie. Oh, I'm still suspicious of that. We're gonna end up back there again, aren't we? Don't tell me in the comments. I haven't read that far yet, but I don't trust it. Oof. Oh. Like she looks so worried when she opened up the door. She goes through a lot. I love the way that they're taking it out when it's not from his perspective. I think it's just like, how do video games work? I think she's like, you seem fine. Talking a bit crazy, but like, overall, you seem fine. Ugh, that many open windows stresses me out. You're gonna have to do a lot of running and push-ups and squats and stuff. You're gonna learn quick. Ugh, there's so many unanswered questions. I'm still working my way through. Agreed. There's a bunch of stuff going on with this, and I haven't gotten to the bottom of it yet, but I have theories. Sometimes that's a good way of teaching people, but sometimes you need a little bit more of a handhold, you know? It depends on the student, but I guess if guilds kind of choose who's part of them, then they might pick a specific style of fighter or learner. He seems sus. I know I'm a bespectacled person, but never trust a bespectacled person in an anime. I think it was just like an inconvenience. I have a feeling this was gonna turn. Because I have a feeling I know which portal that one is. We're gonna have to loop back to it later, but... It's supposed to be so trippy to like actually experience. Like you're just in the hospital, next thing you know you're in a desert being attacked. By that? Nope. You're gonna get that running in now. That stamina. You're gonna wish that you did all the training. Should have just done the push-ups. Look, I don't like exercising either. But I would definitely choose it over this. I mean, the fact that he's already lasted 2 hours is honestly a feat of just like survival instinct. The poor hospital staff that are just like trying to do their job. Boy, you were so close. Oh, poor thing. Yep. Seems so disorienting for them too. Like he just shows up exhausted, dirty, like collapsed on the floor. Determined to get all of his exercises in. Poor darling. I mean, honestly, her apartment looks a lot nicer than if I was going through that kind of a crisis. Back into shape. That's a little optimistic, too. I'm just saying. Back into shape. You weren't exactly an athlete before this point. That would be so handy. I just want to not be tired. Like, that's what I use it for. Telling ya, he should have balanced his stats better. I understand why he put it on strength though. Like to him, for someone who has been called weak for so long. Everyone look at him. Talk to himself. But like I get why he chose strength. Like he feels like that is the part that he needs to really work on because everyone's always telling him he's the weakest. Oh, so we are getting to the key. Mm-hmm. It'll be something. It's like a forecast. Oh. Oh. I mean, so is construction. I mean, not the same way, but it's still dangerous. I mean, all this strength, too, isn't much in the face of, like, illness. Oh. And, like, useless in the face of his mom's illness, useless in the face of being a hunter. Like, he needs to prove that he's good at something. Like, I understand him being like, oh, I'm gonna put all of my stats, as, like, all of my points into strength, because he needs to feel like he's capable. He's so with the mindset of like it's so strange now, like with where I've progressed in the manhwa, to go back and see his mindset be like, it's fine, if it's dangerous I'll just run away. Like, to see where he started, be reminded of it. I also understand like why he did this dungeon, but I also feel like maybe we need to deal with the trauma a little bit more before we like just run headfirst alone into another dungeon. You know? And there goes the runaway tactic. You're gonna need to beat it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is helpful to just like have a bubble come up and be like, "This is how you beat the dungeon." Like, I know most of the time it's like beat the boss, but like, what kind of boss? And so the stress begins anew. You were confident before. You were like, "I can just run." That was our tactic. You're stronger now. Confidence. I love the held shot though. Like we haven't cut yet until then. The lashing out in desperation too. Like pure survival instinct at that point. But you beat what? Oof. Vicious though. And so it begins. And it only gets more worrying from here. I worry a lot about Jinwoo. Just like... he's... been through a lot. Oh. Yep. Thank you for reminding me of my trauma along with him about that particular smile. Nope. You decided to do this alone. You're gonna have to figure it out. Another long shot. Which is interesting. Interesting, like the message of, will you escape? Because that's very much what this ending feels like. Which is very interesting to me. Like, it has a horror element to it, which I understand that there are, like, some horror elements in the storytelling. But it's such a drastic stylistic shift from the opener, this ender, that I just, like, find really interesting. Still using a great use of the color, though. I also think it's interesting with, like, the screens, because that is very much, like, what the pop-up menus are with his ability, right? Like, he is kind of... because of his abilities, he views the world as a game. It's such a strange reminder to be going back to the beginning of this story and, like, see where Jinwoo was at the beginning of all of this. The fear, the saying I can just run away, the doubt, and he still battles with that, at least where I'm at in the manhwa, where he still is kind of desperately trying to prove himself, regardless of how much stronger he gets. And I think it's really interesting that at this point, the way that he sees the world is very much like life or death. He's very grounded in his life, his mom, his sister, his friends, who he is as a person, in soul, in his world. And then as he progresses and as he kind of loses himself in this second awakening, the world becomes more and more of a game. And when we play games, you take risks risks, you don't see the losses as actual losses, right? Like there's a disconnect between you and the NPCs, right? Like the people that aren't you. And I think that that is something that he loses himself in a little bit. Again, where I am at the manhwa, I haven't finished it. So my current kind of anxiety about Jinwoo is the way that he descends more and more into his abilities and disconnects more because he's kind of losing himself in the game of everything and the stats and how can he game the system. And it's so interesting to go back to the beginning of him trying to like figure it out and muddle his way through and still very much kind of see it as this, is this even real? Is this a dream? Doubting the mechanics of it and not really trusting in either the mechanics of his power or in himself. And I just find it fascinating to like look at it now through the eyes of someone who knows a little bit more of the story and who he is and where some of the story is going. But so far I really love the way that they're introducing stuff. I love the way that they're incorporating some stuff, like foreshadowing some stuff that's going to be important later, pulling it forward a little bit. Love some of the visual touches that they're doing, especially since the art is gorgeous in the manhwa. So I love that they're bringing in some of those elements into just like the style that's being presented. It definitely becomes more and more stylistic as the series progresses. And I think that a lot of that is because Jinwoo kind of pulls himself out of the grounding of his life and he spends a lot of time in dungeons and stuff that are in their own reality outside of his real life, so they can afford to be a little bit more on the stylistic side. So interested to see how this series goes and how they incorporate a lot of that into the visuals. I think for one, I can see a little bit of the budget coming through in this one. I think in terms of the presentation and animation, I love the shots where they kind of like stayed in a single shot and they didn't have the cuts. That's a little bit of a tricky thing to accomplish from an animation standpoint, but I can definitely see that the animation quality dips in some certain sections, and maybe some of that's like my excitement is a little bit more manageable because it's not like the beginning of like getting into the animated adaptation. But I think some of that also is putting a bunch of the budget into like the first couple of episodes because you're trying to get people interested, and then saving a lot of it for kind of the major parts that are coming later on. Like this episode was more about setting up the mechanics of his second awakening and him figuring out the logistics of that, then getting into any really action heavy stuff that we're going to probably be getting into later in the story, like we are with this instance dungeon that he's going in right now. There's definitely going to be some good moments near the end of that part of the story, and then some other stuff that we're kind of foreshadowing with the opener, me guessing where we're going to end with the season. And maybe we will, maybe we'll end where I think we are, maybe we won't, I don't know. But there's still some stuff, like some of my favorite parts of the story so far that I'm like I'm waiting for us to get to them so badly. But I hope you enjoyed watching that along with me. You can click this place, go and see my previous reactions, or you can subscribe to miss next time I post a solo leveling reaction, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.